Welcome everyone to the Omniverse of Nick and part 2 to What If Lightning McQueen was in The Walking Dead, aka What If Rick Found Lightning McQueen. But before we get into today's episode, be sure as always to smash the like button, subscribe to the Omniverse of Nick, and comment your favorite part about the current What If and your favorite series on the channel and future what ifs and stories and recommendations for discussions to possibly be featured. With all that out of the way, let's get into this part of the story. With Rick finding Lightning McQueen instead of pursuing the horse, and hearing an amazing tale which is not even fully McQueen's story, and offering to take him on his journey to find his family and travail the dead world of the Walking Dead. And with this, they enter the city of Atlanta, a desolate city full of death and destruction and a few walkers, but they haven't encountered the horde that Rick originally saw. And with this, there is still noise, but it's not much. But Glenn still hears a car slowly but surely going, and this causes him to meet Rick a little bit sooner than he did. Not too much of a big deal, but he does recognize, hear, and then see Lightning McQueen being pulled with Rick, and it's a big reaction, especially from Glenn Rhee. And he can't believe his eyes when he sees what he's looking at. But Rick says that if he's with other people, especially if it's his family, he doesn't have time to explain right now. But he wants to bring McQueen along regardless, to not only find his family, but to show other people that he could be the key to helping them with this whole mess. Glenn, he doesn't know about that or what to make of this whole prospect, but he does agree to keep McQueen a secret for now, and knows of a nearby car garage to keep him at, safe away from the walkers until they get everybody on board about what's going on back where he's at. And Rick meets T-Dog, Andrea, Morales, Jackie, and all the people there, except under better circumstances with less noise and less walkers drawn to their location. With that change in mind, and the fact that Glenn met him a little bit earlier than in the canon story, Rick still has the bag of guns, but, and this is big, he doesn't have the grenade, because the grenade came from the tank, and in canon, this would drastically hurt the story and basically kill them off. But with McQueen here, it's not going to happen. You'll see what I mean in the next few parts. But for now, just be left in suspense. You'll see why it's not going to end the story. Glenn lets everyone know about what he saw, heard, and who this Rick guy has brought with him. And he doesn't call him a dumb A-word because he's not really in this situation. And says that Rick thinks that this car could be the key to helping them end this whole ordeal that they've found themselves in, and possibly even save the world. He actually believes that. But Andrea, along with everybody else, mainly Andrea, is very, very, very not so sure of the prospect. And who could blame them outside because of the whole prospect of talking about a talking car, and a sentient car at that. But Rick tells them all that he knows how far-fetched it sounds, and even he was unsure of the whole deal. Thought it was a coma-based, dream that he was basically having, or he was going crazy because of the world he woke up to. But it is far from a lie, and that they all need to listen and get on to this whole deal, especially with how big this discovery is. But for now, they have Merl to deal with, who begins shooting at the walkers, thus drawing attention for the first time, and not Rick's fault this time. Rick cuffs him and puts him at gunpoint, like he does, except under a bit better circumstances considering the implications. And Rick says that now more than ever before, he wants to show the Mcqueen and tells them where Glenn put him for safekeeping so that it wouldn't draw walkers and everything like that. And with that, Rick says that they still got to keep people here to guard Merle, but he wants to take the majority to see lightning. And thus, they go to the car garage in Atlanta where Glenn and Rick took Mcqueen for safekeeping. And with this, the people that go there are Rick, Jackie, T-Dog, and Glenn. And Andrea and Morales opt to stay behind because of the whole circumstance, not really believing it to a level, and to just guard Merle in general. It's the best case. And once they get in there, and Rick says that Mcqueen can come out of hiding because he can still move, he's just not fully able to drive on his own. They pretty much just towed him there, and he's basically just moving around slowly checking out the place. And once Glenn and everyone sees Mcqueen truly, they all have a mixed amount of reactions and emotions tied to seeing a sentient, talking, moving car. And Glenn especially is so dumbfounded and amazed by this revelation. And it's just completely mind-blowing for everyone concerned. And why wouldn't it be? And T-Dog, he brings up that he once saw a movie about an automatic sort of sentient car, Kit from Knight Riders. And by the way, I never knew what that was until a family member of mine brought up the reference. I feel like T-Dog would be the one to mostly bring up that kind of reference, and honestly, it fits. If any of you are familiar with the whole prospect, and everyone would basically be looking at T-Dog like, really? Really? That's completely almost unrelated. It's barely relatable to the subject, outside of automatic vehicle, and that doesn't even cut corners with what they're seeing and looking and acknowledging. And Mcqueen, he doesn't get what any of them are saying either. Barely. At least they're speaking his normal language. And honestly, Mcqueen right now, staring at all these people, even Rick, who he's been around for some time, is scared. But Rick tells him he doesn't have to be scared. Rick's brought him along for quite a minute, and he wouldn't have done this if he didn't care about Mcqueen, about saving him, about listening to him. But he does tell Mcqueen that him, and eventually finding his family and the people here, he wants to find people and his family who can help him. And he asks Mcqueen if there's anything that he wants to tell Rick and everybody else about his past, and remember more details and everything so they can analyze him better and help him and make him fixable to the point where he can actually drive. Now Mcqueen, still distrusting and scared of looking at different beings outside of his own. Even Rick, who he's been with for a minute, he finally opens up. And it's mainly because Rick, like I said, not around for a true long time, but enough that he can trust him to a level. And he begins to open up more about his past. He says he lives in a world very different than this one. Much more, not so much people, but cars. Sentient cars like him. Which is why whenever he woke up, and even when he was fixed, he was so discombobulated and confused at the prospect of different beings and creatures outside of what he's seen, heard of, and everything. In his world, talking vehicles, planes, helicopters was all the rage. And he was one of the best. Even if he was a rookie, he was actually a race car, if they couldn't tell from the paint. And he was one of the best for a long time, and he had many people to help him along the way to get that milestone also. And he also pulls out a signature ka-chow to implicate this, but it's not as good because he's not completely 100%, and just because of what he is at this moment in time. But then the story starts to turn sour when he mentions, he's done mentioning like radiator springs and some other details. He doesn't get too full into it, but after he explains a good majority of the details about his past life and everything like that, he starts to dim down the mood by saying what truly dove his career down from a great race car. The biggest race and failure of his life, seemingly. The race against Jackson Storm and futuristic cars. And he just wasn't enough anymore. He tried so hard in that race. But in the end, he just ended up busting himself apart after everything he had been through. And all the people that helped him and everything that he achieved, he just failed. And somehow he wound up here, and he doesn't even know how or why or anything. And it doesn't help that he doesn't know if he's ever going to get back home. What everyone at home has thought about what has happened, they could think he's dead, missing, or anything. And he doesn't know if he'll ever get home, what this place truly is, or what his goal in life now is, being seemingly a broken down car. Just like a late Doc Hudson, who he name drops. And everyone there is astonished. Their minds and everything are just so unbelievably touched with this amazing story. Never in every one of their lives had they heard such a great story from a car. Even Rick, who's finally made up his mind about what to do, about what to actually do when it comes to Lightning McQueen. He looks at Lightning McQueen with all seriousness and said, it doesn't matter what happened. He is going to help Lightning McQueen. He meant it whenever he said that he was going to fix him and help him out, and how he thinks that he would help out too. But now, he's making a pact and giving his word to Lightning McQueen, and says that he will be his caretaker, his friend, and his guide along the way to make him a better car and to try and get him home, no matter the cost. He doesn't know if Lightning will be able to fix the world that they're in, but they can dang sure try. And he will try with everything in his power to make sure that Lightning McQueen is 10 times, 20 times, and 30 times the car that he ever was, get him home, and make him one of the best cars in the world again. And this, for the first time since Lightning McQueen has been in this world, makes him smile the biggest smile that he has ever exuded off of his face since he landed in the Walking Dead world. And he feels like he has truly found a great friend in Rick Grimes already. Glenn brings up the fact that along the way of Rick finding his family and them all fixing him and getting back to the Atlanta camp, there is one thing that might be crucial into helping McQueen further along with fixing their world. Merle Dixon. Because of his knowledge about tools and just his knowledge in general, military, etc., he might be, well, erratic and unstable. But with Daryl, it can't just leave him on that roof. And who knows when Daryl's going to be back at their Atlanta camp and mentions Merle's brother. And he could be a decent help. And Rick has to admit, he was going to think of letting him go eventually and going back there, just making sure that Merle was under control, but Glenn brings up a very good point. And so, they get back to the rooftop, Rick holds Merle at gunpoint and uncuffs him, but makes sure that he is definitely not a threat, and tells Merle that if they can actually trust him, that he will help Rick and everyone else not only get back to the Atlanta camp safely, but help his friend, Lightning McQueen. Maybe they'll actually think of him as a different person than how they all did before. But Merle, he just thinks of this as just a ruse from a cop, and Officer Friendly just trying to mess with his mind, and talking car, really? But once they get down to the underground of the building, Lightning McQueen is there, drives up straight in front of Merle with all fluster and everything, and just casually smiles looks in the direction of Merle and says, "Hey." And Merle is utterly dumbfounded. He cannot believe what he is staring at. And honestly, he's thinking about just going up and cuffing himself back up to that roof just to get away from whatever the frick this is, but it kind of sells him on board with the whole thing, because who wouldn't be on board with a talking car, or at least who wouldn't be scared enough into submission because of a talking car, you know? So, Glenn finds his same red car, poetic. Lightning McQueen drives on his own, fixable enough to a degree, or he would just be towed. And the rest get the truck that they did, and they all return to the Atlanta camp with no blaring alarm horn, and the horde being less of a problem, even if they were following it last minute. Then, once they get back to the Atlanta camp, Rick reunites with his family, and that all goes the exact same. And after some time, give or take like 10 minutes, Rick decides that everyone here, including Shane and his family, decides he's ready to let them meet Lightning McQueen. And he calls out from behind him for Lightning McQueen to come out, and there's no reason for him to be scared or hide anymore. And he wants him to meet his family. How will Shane, Lori, Carl, and the rest of the Atlanta camp react to Lightning McQueen? Will they react the same as everybody else and agree to help? Will others disagree and try to kill him? Will Lightning save the Walking Dead world and get back to his own? Or is this all just a bad idea?
Why am I asking you all these questions?
Find out in the next episode on the Omniverse of Nick.